guys, I think it's time for another update. Turn that thing off. Alright, as always, it's a mess. What can I say? So, remember how we did a couple turbos on this thing already? Well, we might be doing another one. So, with the Speeduino, which is in there and running, you can wire up a back pressure gauge. And so I was in the process of taking my exhaust manifold off so that I could make a little port so that I could measure back pressure. And I took my my downpipe off. And you can't see it, but you can probably see it here. I was greeted by this lovely sight. You can definitely see oil there. And so that can mean one of two things. One, the engine is gone, or two, the turbo is gone. And I do believe it is the turbo. So this was brand new turbo when we got it, but we ran it on a single turbo LS, and well, that obviously didn't work. We actually measured back pressure on that, and it made like 60 pounds of back pressure at 12 pounds of manifold pressure. So that thing was probably spinning, you know, way above what it was designed for. So yeah, I think we blew a turbo. I don't think it was done by the 4200. I think it was done on the previous car that it was on. So, you know, it happens. You know, it's I'm a Nelson. We don't dwell on these kind of things. You know, we just kind of get up and brush ourselves off and move on. You know, it sucks, but engine's okay. So that brings me to what turbo? What turbo are we gonna go to? So I found a 7875 with a 68 AR exhaust housing, and I think it's gonna work pretty well. So I'm also gonna take you guys through. I found this pretty neat program from Borg Warner on turbo sizing, and so basically you can enter all the specifications for your engine in, and you can calculate what size turbo will, or I shouldn't say you can't calculate, but you can basically lay over the operating points of the engine over a compressor map for a turbo, and then you can look at your turbine selection and see how much back pressure you should be operating at the given operating parameters. So I guess I'll jump to that. So I wanted to show off this really cool tool that my friend at work told me about. So Borg Warner makes this tool called the MatchBot, which helps you in selecting the turbo you want for your vehicle, and what will work best with your engine setup and all that. So basically you can take your dyno graph. One of the inputs for the program is volumetric efficiency, and if you have a dyno graph for your engine, you can calculate what the volumetric efficiency in naturally aspirated form for your vehicle is going to be. I'm not going to get into the math, but this is the volumetric efficiency for a Vortec 4200. So the first setup we're going to look at is a single turbo with the turbo that is currently on the vehicle, a 5976E. So It's a 59 millimeter compressor with a 65 millimeter turbine. It's a billet compressor. So obviously BorgWarner doesn't have compressor maps for, Precision doesn't really, Precision doesn't even put out the compressor maps for their turbos, so nobody has them, let alone BorgWarner, and they're probably not going to put the Precision Turbo compressor maps in their program because they're trying to sell BorgWarner turbos, not Precision turbos. So what we can do here, though, is we can find a compressor that is sort of close to the one we're looking at. Now, obviously, they're not going to have Chinese turbos in here either, for the same reasons. But what's neat here is we can load up a compressor map and we can plug in all these parameters. Most of them are automatically filled in when you select what type of fuel you're using and the engine displacement and single turbo and whatnot. But you need to fill in your volumetric efficiency. It has some default numbers in there, which you can use those. Those are fine. But the rest of them, you'll fill in as time goes on. But if we come down here to the compressor map, so if you've never looked at a compressor map, your y-axis here is your pressure ratio, your x-axis is your mass flow rate. So pressure ratio, if you're running 0 pounds of boost, you're going to be at 1.0 pressure ratio, because that is 14.7 divided by 14.7. If you're running 14.7 pounds of boost, you're going to be 14.7 plus 14.7 atmosphere divided by 14.7, and that's 2.0. You'll be on this line here. If you're running 28, you'll be at 3, whatever. You get the picture. So basically what you're looking at with a compressor map is, with a compressor, any compressor, you can make one of these maps. You can see how efficiently it is compressing the air, how much extra heat it creates in that compression. That will determine the efficiency. So like this island here, it has what are called efficiency islands. So you can see an island here. It is 78% efficient in this particular area. So you can see points here. These are the points that we filled in here. So at 2,000 RPMs, 104% volumetric efficiency, it's here, not even on the map yet. 2 at 104 volumetric efficiency, 12 pounds of boost, and at those operating points you are at this point here. But you can see as we get further and further higher in the engine's operating range, it's getting further and further off of the map, which is bad. You want it to be right here in the center. You want it to compress air as efficiently as possible. And so we can see this compressor is actually a little bit bigger. So this is a conservative estimate. We're probably even further off of the compressor map here, and because of that, we're maybe not making air as efficiently as we could. So what's really cool about this tool is you can see your turbine sizing and how that affects your back pressure ratio. So we're using a 65 millimeter turbine with a 0.96 AR housing. So what we can do is basically you take these, you can minimize all these tabs, and then you can play around with your turbine expansion ratio here, and it'll move this dot down to the particular turbine that you're using. And then once you get this dot, you can see I got most of them down where they're supposed to be. Well, actually, let's change this to 16 pounds of boost. I don't know what my boost went to. on that last pass at the drag strip, unfortunately. So I'm just taking a guess at 16. I think that's around where it was. I lost my data, so I really have no clue. But if we move this guy down to the turbine that we're using, or up to the turbine that we're using, we can then, once we get all the dots, you can only be on one line, this line right here. So once you have all the dots on the line, you can open up this tab and it will tell you what your back pressure is at that particular operating point, which is extremely useful. So we have 16 pounds of boost, and it's saying that we should be seeing 34 pounds of back pressure, which is a lot. So for people that don't know, back pressure ratio is the pressure in the exhaust manifold divided by the pressure in the intake manifold. Now that's normally measured in positive pressure, PSIG, so you don't factor in manifold, it's not an absolute pressure, so you're not factoring in atmospheric pressure. That's normally how people talk. So it's 34 PSIG divided by 16 PSIG. So you can see that we're over 2-to-1 back pressure ratio, which is usually where the engine stops making power. So they say between 1.5 and 2-to-1 back pressure ratio is typically where your turbine is no longer able to make more power. In fact, you'll see in some cases where you can decrease boost and it will actually make more power than if you had run more boost, which is counterintuitive. So you can see here very clearly that we're out of turbine. But yeah, so this might be a blessing in disguise for our future power goals. You know, well, I wouldn't say a blessing in disguise. A turbo going bad is never good, but you know, it might be time. So what's also really, really cool about this tool is you can use it to see how much horsepower the engine is going to make. So obviously this is flywheel horsepower, but it says engine power right here is 623 horsepower at 6,000 RPMs. And it also gives the amount of horsepower it takes to drive the turbo. So we can take 623 horsepower minus 70 times 0.85 to factor in drivetrain losses, and it comes out to 470 horsepower to the wheels. So the numbers that I was running on the quarter mile and eighth mile performance for my car, based on the weight of the vehicle, we're saying it should be making 450 wheel horsepower. This is saying it should make 470, so we're in the ballpark. Now the VVT might get us up to that 470, who knows? Because obviously the factory power figure was done with VVT being active, but it's really neat. So let's say I want to make 500 wheel horsepower. So we need to make more boost. So let's take it up to 20. So now we got to get our turbine back where it's supposed to be. And so we got to get our expansion ratio where it needs to be. And basically hit this button a whole bunch of times. So basically what this calculator is going to tell us is it's not going to happen with this turbo. At least based on my analysis here. So we're even worse on back pressure. 42 pounds of back pressure at 20 pounds of boost. You know, we're getting even worse. So I doubt it's going to happen. And if we come down to our compressor map, we're getting even further off of the compressor map. So basically this isn't going to happen with this turbo. So I did another run of the calculator with a wheel that was close to a 78 millimeter, so it's a 76 millimeter inducer, a 100 millimeter exducer, and it's a billet compressor wheel. You can see the map is here, and we're going to set this to 20 pounds of boost. So I want to make 500 wheel horsepower. I think it's going to take 20 pounds of boost to do that. So we can come down to our turbine selector, and I want to run a 75 millimeter turbine and a 68 AR housing, and we spit that all out, and we get 30 pounds of back pressure at 20 pounds of boost, 1.5 to 1 pressure, back pressure ratio, which is pretty okay. You know, that's going to be good. And what's going to be neat is when we actually take it on the dyno and put run this thing up on the dyno at 20 pounds of boost, we'll be able to read back pressure. I'm going to plumb it up and read it, and we're going to see if this calculator actually is accurate. Then at 20 pounds of boost, let's see how much horsepower we're going to get. So we got 706 minus 77 times 0.85. Hey, 534. We made 500 wheel horsepower. And you can also see here that our operating points are right in the center of the compressor map, which is right where we want to be. So basically what this tool is telling me is that a 7875 billet compressor turbo is the right size turbo for this combination. It might spool slowly, but I'm hoping the 0.68 AR housing will help that, and we'll get into anti-lag stuff. And also, I'm thinking the 7875 we had on here before was bad anyways. So yeah, we're going to get a brand new turbo. This will be the first brand new turbo we put on this thing, and we're going to see what it does. So, alright. So basically what comes out of this is, I think we need a 7875. I think the program was pretty clear. A 78 millimeter billet compressor. We will be operating right in the efficiency zone of the turbo. So I'm thinking this 68 AR housing and the 78 millimeter compressor are going to work well. Obviously, this guy was pulling good when we pulled it. I didn't have any reason to investigate it, but we got oil coming out of it, and oil coming out of a turbo is never a good sign. So, you know, it happens. We'll order another turbo. Good thing they're cheap. You know, $255, and we'll move on to the next one. But next video, I'm hoping to have the Speeduino completely sorted out and be playing with the VVT. And then I've already talked to Matt, and we're probably gonna do another dyno session and see what the VVT actually does. And we'll have back pressure, which is going to be cool. So we're actually going to be able to take that program that BorgWarner makes and see how it matches up to real life, which should be pretty cool. Alright, I'm going to cut you guys off there, and I'll catch you in the next one.